Hi everyone, this is Joe from the Inward Markings Garment Company, and this is my vlog to destroy any possibility that the little clothing brand called Inward Markings that I launched this week will in any way grow or become even somewhat popular, because I'm sharing life experiences that are vital to me, but are likely to cause disgust or at the very least unsettle anyone who watches these. But please watch if you choose to do so. So the Inward Markings Garment Company has released its first line of 10 designs. They are available at inwardmarkings.com, and the Instagram account is at inwardmarkings. The reason I am talking about these experiences is not just to tell stories for the sake of it or start yet another YouTube channel. All respect to the great YouTube channels out there though. But it's because it feels like it's worth sharing experiences that led to the launch of the brand, not just to raise awareness of it, but because I think they're significant in the bigger picture. And they've caused me to reevaluate my entire life previously, and as I've mentioned, it feels like a destined process, because this last period leading to the launch, whichever way I look at it, it could not have had the impact and be as profound as it continues to be without the events that unfolded in my life before that. So with both good, bad, and also really bad experiences in my life, I haven't really been able to properly comprehend them at the time like most people. But at this point, I now feel like things rolled out in the way that they did, because that's the journey, if you like, that I needed to take, and it feels like where I am now is where I have to be. And that's, there'll be people out there who'll be like, oh yeah, whatever, that's just the way things are. But for me, it's been very significant, and through this retelling, hopefully it will become clear why. And over subsequent episodes, the connections hopefully will become apparent to you guys, and yeah, you'll hopefully understand why, where that significance comes from. Before I go on, I just want to say that I'm not offering life advice or presenting myself as some kind of role model or guru or anything like that. So yeah, please, obviously, just close that window if anything feels like it's going to upset you. And I'm certainly not saying do what I've done or anything like that. The only thing I will suggest is that, not just in relation to drugs, but in regards to so many things, I think it's really important to do your own research, to talk to people with genuine expertise and experiences. It's way too easy to be spoon-fed distorted, misinformed opinions from people who might have an agenda, or who might just get paid a hell of a lot of money to disseminate hateful ideas or content that can do major harm to people's lives. Yeah, so yeah, that's really the only thing I would suggest. So one thing that I want to start off today with is that I left off with an experience with a dark figure subsequent to a time in my life where I had an experience with LSD, a powerful experience. And I think the reason I'm mentioning that again is that I think there is something, like I've read and heard people talk about Kundalini energy starting at the base of the spine, and so I think there's something about that passage between your behind up to the point of the head. I'm still doing research on that, because subsequent to that dark figure experience, I had another acid experience as part of that scene where we organised those parties in Perth and Fremantle, where I just found myself straddled in front of a speaker as the electronic music coursed through me from just in the same way that whatever it was, force or energy, came through me with the dark figure. So something I'm still trying to understand, but there's something significant regarding that phenomena, if you like. So things got overwhelming in Perth as well. As you can imagine, these are experiences. I wasn't even 20 by this time, and I was also beginning to experiment with injecting opiate use. So that includes morphine, heroin. Again, these are the kinds of things that are going to mosquito. These are the kinds of things that are going to elevate the status of my brand immensely. But if your mind is that closed, then it's all good that you're going to tune out. So it really seemed like that, and this is part of that understanding of the way my life has unfolded. There was just, if you want to talk about the universe, there was just so many factors that led to me associating with people who had access to opiates, who were engaged in that behaviour, and then that continued after I left Perth and relocated to Melbourne, where the friends who I'd hooked up with in Sydney were living at that time. It was around the turn of the century. That's legitimate to say turn of the century. It's not exclusive to pre-20th century transitions, surely. Anyway, what was, again, this is yet another factor, and the time that myself and a friend arrived in Melbourne at that time was an unprecedented, and there hasn't been anything like it since. What you could call a heroin epidemic in Melbourne, and an incredibly high purity and incredibly wide availability. And it wasn't like you needed to know the right people, because there was kind of 4 or 5 intensive street-based markets. So if anyone wanted to find heroin, there was one way where the newspapers would report on it and identify the areas that you could go to. But yeah, you just need to hit the street corners of those areas, whether it be the CBD or an area like Springvale, and you would be able to find people selling the drug on the street. And so something that's worth keeping in mind regarding the experiences that I've discussed so far is that if you do reading In Search of the Ultimate High, which is a really interesting book that I highly recommend, you will see that where psychedelic experiences are guided, and there are people who've got that expertise regarding these experiences, and they serve as mentors, etc. There's a formalized process, if you like, and there's a period of integration that occurs after, because these mind-blowing experiences occur, and then people need to reintegrate into everyday society, which, as you can imagine, is a there's no pamphlet that you pick up at the health centre to guide you in that way. So what I was doing was haphazard. It was I guess in a sense it was intuitive, which is something that I'm realizing later. But yeah, there was no structure. There were no mentors. This was pre-internet as well, so I wasn't. I didn't have the kind of access to information and shared experiences that people have now. So and it's especially difficult because of the stigma regarding drug experimentation. So you don't have many people that you can share these experiences with and talk them through with. So I just, did my best with the different social circles that I was hanging out with. And what was helpful is that concurrent to that booming heroin scene was a peak in that I imagine is connected to what was happening in Sydney, like a peak in the electronic party scene in Melbourne. There were movements like Reclaim the Streets and so forth as well. So there was a lot happening in terms of a culture that was based in psychedelia. So that was helpful in terms of being able to make contact with people who were open to these ideas and the culture. And so my experimentation with opiate use, including heroin and morphine, and yes, injecting drug use, intensified after I arrived in Melbourne, with the accessibility and the experiences that I had with the drugs, which are analogous to what I talked about with regards to my first experience with amphetamines, in that it was a full body experience that, as people talk about, was kind of like a falling in love with the drug. I really did love it. I loved the way it made me feel, and I loved the way it helped with that integration after those extraordinary experiences with psychedelics, etc. So it was a way to kind of ameliorate the overstimulation that I subjected myself to in terms of what was going on in my brain with those psychedelic experiences. So it just obviously made everything a lot calmer, and life became dreamlike, which is what writers who engage in opium use way back when, they write of those experiences. Well, again, I'm not promoting the use of opiates, and they can lead to disastrous consequences. So, but that was my legitimate experience, and for me, it was a reason to continue their usage, because they worked, and they worked in a profound way for me at that time. I also, politics continued to be the politics of drug use were always important to me, and how they connected to my broader kind of worldview that is linked to, the stuff I talked about in the first episode about feeling an innate sense of the importance regarding fairness, etc. And so it just, through both my reading, that sense, and who I am, I found it an injustice that I was unable to engage in this drug use without, the government or the law intervening. I felt like, in the same way that I view sexuality and abortion rights, one's own body, the 100% right over one's own body is a fundamental right that is non-negotiable. Like, if you don't have complete control over your own body, then I'm not sure what you have any kind of control over in life. I think it's 100% fundamental, and there's a lot to that, and I'm not gonna preach at you, but that was also influential, and that's why I'm mentioning it. See, I think drug use often gets portrayed as, completely chaotic, deviant, and it's that stigma thing, and it really colours people's view of people who use those drugs. But for me, and others, there was a lot more to it, both like intellectually, culturally, in terms of the life history prior to my drug use. So it's not something that can be understood without taking into account all of that. So yeah, it was like the perfect kind of storm, if you like, to have arrived in Melbourne at that time. And I was to raise some money. So I'll just talk about my next kind of near to equivalent death experience, because if you haven't watched the first chapter, it just feels like at this point in time that I've had something protective that is beyond the material realm in my life, that has allowed me to be here where I am. I don't have any disease related to my past drug use. I've never been to jail, and I've never even overdosed. It's a mosquito. So and I'm not saying that to kind of show off or to say how great I am. It's just in relation to this idea of something protective that's been in my life. And so I'd connected with someone from overseas who was able to bring in some LSD, which was obviously popular at that time, given the cultural movement with the rave scene and the party scene. And so I was going out to clubs and looking through the street press on a weekly basis to look at what nights are on, to go there to sell LSD to people who were seeking it out. I wasn't trying to introduce people to it. I wasn't hanging around schoolyards. I was going to places where there were adults, free-thinking adults who were seeking to use LSD. So I'm not promoting selling drugs as some kind of wonderful career option or anything like that. But what I was doing was not coming from a place of harm. That's kind of what I'm trying to make clear. And it's also in the context of me perceiving my drug experiences as beneficial in particular ways. Sure, at the time I was still trying to comprehend what I'd experienced, but I wasn't going out there trying to harm people. And so on one evening, I was at a venue right in the middle of the city of Melbourne, and was just standing at the front, just kind of trying to get people's attention. Very popular weekly night, and a couple of guys who in hindsight I should have kind of been wary of, but I just wanted to make the money and sort of to support myself. They approached me and they said that they didn't want to do anything out the front of the nightclub because it would be too exposed. So they wanted me to meet them around the back where there's an alleyway. So just because I was just wanting to try and make money as quickly as possible, I went around the back and met them, and they ushered me toward again, I should have seen this coming, but they ushered me towards like a corner of the alleyway, and I was ready to do the transaction when they both then bent down and pulled out blood-filled syringes from their sock, and they pinned me up against like some wire cyclone fencing, and they both placed the tips of those blood-filled syringes directly on my skin, like on the underside of my neck. It was I don't know. I have to say, I didn't immediately become like terrified. I think like there's a part of me that was just kind of like intrigued that it was happening, and so I was calmer than you might have expected me to be. But I was ready to just, relinquish completely, especially because I could feel the needles right on my skin. But I can't now remember exactly what occurred, but in a split second, something occurred with either one of the guys' jackets or my jackets, where it got caught up in the fencing behind us, and it caused, for some reason, both of them to remove, to pull away the syringe points from my neck, and I used that split-second opportunity to somehow wrestle free from the tracksuit jacket that I was in and run off. Now, I don't understand why I was able to run off so easily, because they could have stabbed me at any point because they were so tightly closed in on me. But that one split-second occurrence where either my jacket or his jacket got caught in the fence, and it was a distraction, served as a distraction, because either I or him made a movement that then caused either of us to realize that somehow we'd been caught up in the fence, just allowed me to make that break. But yeah, in hindsight, it kind of, and even at the time, I remember thinking, how the fuck did I just get away from that? Because it would have been really easy for them just to have stabbed me as I tried to get away, because yeah, as I said, we were in such close proximity. But I did get away, and I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that they got the money that was in my jacket pocket. But apart from that, I still had money to be able to buy, support myself after, from then on, until I had to sell more acid. And yeah, that's where I'll leave today. Hopefully you're not too freaked out, and if you tune in for further episodes, these seemingly disparate incidents will kind of hopefully make more sense. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, and inwardmarkings.com and at inwardmarkings for the Instagram. Thank you.